Hello everyone, my name is Patricia from Patricia Bohl Marketing, and today it's my pleasure to interview the beautiful, magnificent Jessica Stone. Hi Jessica, how are you?
Oh, Patricia, very good to see you.
Where do you join us from, Jessica?
I'm in Easton, Pennsylvania, on the
Okay,
east coast of the U.S. So little suburb out here. Very sunny and cold today.
and cold today. Okay, great. So Jessica from New York to London and back. Jessica Stone has over 22 years experience as a copywriter, ghostwriter, and journalist. For the past decade, she has specialized in writing for experts, best-selling authors, and coaches. She spent 1 month at the Sivananda Yoga Ranch in Grass Valley, California, where she earned her yoga teacher training certification and came back with more than a few stories.
That's
Great.
right.
Yeah. And I already wanted to mention something else when I was reading your bio, but now I've lost the thread already. But yeah, the reason we have that interview is that you are a storyteller basically, and I've been already speaking with another yoga teacher how she incorporates storytelling in her yoga classes. But today we want to dive a little bit deeper in how you can use as well storytelling for marketing, so that marketing becomes more natural and easier. So yeah, already thanks so much for taking the time for us, Jessica. And I
Thank you.
always start my interviews with asking, how did you find your way to the yoga mat, Jessica? When did you start yoga?
So the yoga mat, I first came to the yoga mat when I was 22 years old. So 22 years ago now, when I was a graduate student at NYU. And it was on the list of things to do at the gym. And I thought, yoga, that sounds good. And so that was almost 2 decades ago. And it's been the thing that I've kept coming back to over and over again. I'll go away from it for months. I'll come back to it. But through moves, through breakups, through life changes, somehow yoga is the one thing that keeps on, calling me back. And it's
Mm-hmm.
something that I can do anywhere. So I need things to be easy and I need things to be able to travel with me. I have a son who's 4 and I try to do yoga with him and he often tells me, no yoga, but I'm hoping that that will change sometime. But sometimes he likes to twist himself into different poses and all that. Yeah, I just think that as long as you can stay flexible, you can look great as many years as you have on this planet and you can feel young.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Something that I think everybody wants.
And that translates to everything in life, not only on the yoga mat, but as long as you stay flexible and open-minded, a lot of things are possible, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And you also mentioned that you are a yoga teacher, but you are not teaching. So do you want to tell us a little bit more about how you found, yeah, why you did the yoga teacher training then, and why you are not teaching?
Yeah, no, I did the training now 10 years ago. At the time, I thought I wanted to be a health coach. It's when everybody was becoming a health coach. And so I made a website and I thought I'm going to be a health coach and I should also teach yoga. It's a perfect suite of offerings. And then I started this, and they say that you really only know what you want to do when you start doing it. So
Mm,
staying in your head doesn't really get you anywhere. And so I started and I realized, and I didn't actually teach yoga, but I was doing the health coaching. I liked to write much more than I liked being a coach, and much more than I liked standing up in front of a group of people and trying to teach them. What I love is being able to talk and get feedback, which is why
mhm,
I don't want to be on a stage. I like to be able to talk like I'm speaking with you, and find out your stories. Because if I'm talking, that I can't hear your stories and I can't learn something. So I just decided that it was a great skill for me to have, just for me, for myself. Now that I think about it, I have taught little classes, like when I used to be in a rowing club. I did a little few sessions with my team, but it was never anything where I was working with a studio. It was just something that I did with friends, and my mother, if she'll let me, from time to time.
mhm, mhm. And yeah, we also know by now that you are a journalist and a copywriter. And yeah, our today's topic is storytelling. So tell us, why is storytelling so powerful?
Well, I think storytelling is the way that our hearts talk to each other. So if you think about think about a close friend that you have, or when you fell in love, at what point did that happen? And usually it's when that person was saying something deeply, deeply personal about themselves. And it was probably in the form of a story.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then that inspired you to share something about yourself. And then all of a sudden, instead of having two people who are trying to look a certain way to each other, the masks come off, and then you fall into deepness and closeness. And then you start to share more and more. So I think you only really trust each other when you've gotten somebody's real story.
Mm-hmm.
We're all kind of thinking, I think we all want to feel that we're okay and that we're normal and that somebody
Mm-hmm.
understands us. And I think that's why we go see films also, because we get a story and we think, oh, okay, I'm not the only one who thinks this way, or I'm not the only one who's had this question. Yeah, I think that once you can really get to the heart of somebody's struggle, pain, or what they've been able to get through in their life, then you form trust, and then trust is where you can really get to know somebody, and
Mm-hmm.
then great things happen from there.
Yeah, beautiful explanation to have a deeper connection and yeah, share life. Is it only memories, you think? That's now a really weird question, I know, but yeah, how else can we describe storytelling in besides sharing memories? Do you have another explanation?
Yeah, I think you just tell whatever is true in this moment right now. So I went to pick up my son from school. He's in the little preschool 3 mornings every week, and he likes to climb up into this tree. And I get a little nervous, but I try to nod as if the mother fear comes in. He gets into this spiny tree, and all of a sudden, it came out of nowhere. He's in the tree, and I'm trying to see him through the branches, and he says, "A boy in a tree looked up to see how high he was." And I was like, oh my goodness, he just created his first story.
How profound is that?
And so it made me think, like, I don't know if this happened to you, but I remember being in grade school. In the US, we call it grade school. So, like, grades kindergarten through 8th grade.
Okay.
And do you remember having a voice in your head that would narrate and observe what was going on? It's kind of like that witness. So
Oh, okay.
I remember being in school, and I excused myself from the classroom to go to the bathroom, and I remember in a voice in my head saying, "And now she's going to the bathroom," and I was like, "Oh, what is that?"
Who's observing me?
Yeah. And so it's like it gets deep, right? Like, who
Mm-hmm.
is the me that is watching my experience? And so it's not just a witness, but it's a storyteller. And
Yeah.
it never changes. It's always this ageless quality about you,
Yeah.
which is why, I don't know about you, but the older I get, I can't tell how old people are, because
Oh,
the voice
yeah.
in my head has always been the same age, which is ageless.
Yeah.
So when we tap into that, I think we really get to the core of who we are as people.
Mm-hmm.
We realize that we're not alone, that we're part of something bigger. And so my son had that moment at 4.5. And then
Wow.
he kept adding lines, because I said to him, "So then what happened?" And he said, "Well, then he came down off the tree and he walked home." And then he added more. And then he went to play with his friends. And then he had dinner. So it's like he's getting to know his inner storyteller, and it's as simple as that. And so I think when people think, "Oh, I don't know how to tell a story," I think you're just overthinking it too much.
Totally. Yeah.
Once you overthink it, and I mean, I'm guilty of this also, right? You sit down to the page and you think, "Oh my gosh, I have to write something." But if you think about just talking to somebody, as we are doing now, um, if you can reach one person, then you can reach so many, right? All you have to worry about is getting to the heart of one person, and you do
Mhm.
that by saying one true thing that's real for you right now, and also being aware of how you're trying to come across to people.
Okay.
Ask yourself, what is it? How is it that I'm trying to get people to see me? Am I trying to get them to see me as an expert? Am I trying to get them to see me as somebody who's, has it all figured out. People don't want people who have it all figured out. They want to hear how they came from point A to point B and success, but that there's still challenges and there's still growth, because again, that's someone that you can trust.
That's a beautiful expression. Yeah, I also just think about that in yoga, especially as a yoga teacher, I at the moment think a lot about holding space for my community on the mat. And I'm a strong believer that marketing is nothing else than holding space for my community of yoga teachers, in that case, off the mat. And I'm by all means not an expert, and I don't want to come across as somebody who knows it all. But if I'm able to hold space for yoga teachers to explore the realm of using marketing tools to spread their yoga mission, that's something really beautiful, I believe.
Yeah. And you really create a safe space. Because I was thinking about this as I was getting ready for this call. You're in a room where people trust you enough to have their butts up in the air doing downward dog. So you can pretty much say anything. I mean, they're pretty open right there.
Yeah.
So there's already trust from the beginning.
That's true. Yeah, a safe space. And so Jessica, where and when can yoga teachers use storytelling? We already tapped into a few things, but can you give us more examples?
Absolutely everywhere. From your website. I don't know about you, but the first place I go when I hit a website is I want to know about that person. So I go straight there. If you could put that on the homepage, even better. But I still go to the about page.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be long, just short. People don't have a lot of time these days too. But if they want to read more, then they'll sign up for your emails and sign up to work with you. But yeah, just even from there, and of course you want to make it about the person who comes to your website, but I think being able to tell your story, what was it that brought you to the mat, just like you asked me, what is it that keeps you there, right? Because two different things, why you keep coming back, why you chose to make this your life's work. As long as you can keep on sharing that, that's great. And one thing, I have a coach, and one of the things she always tells me is, how can this be easy? Right? So like when you sit down to write something, why is this easy? Is it easy because you have a lot of friends? You find it easy to make friends. If you've made a lot of friends, then you're good at being able to share from your heart. It's easy because you've been teaching for X number of years. It's easy because you find it simple to talk to somebody on the street, or even if you don't, you have a lot of conversations in your head. So you already have a lot to work with. And then the other little mind hack that I like is, and it's also good for, what am I supposed to do with my life? Like, what if you knew what you were going to do, what would it be? So it's kind of a good little mental trick for tapping into your wisdom, to your inner guidance. Because we all have the answers, right? We just need to find a way to get them out. So if you ask yourself, if I knew what my story was, what would it be?
Okay.
And it's usually some kind of a combination of an area that you've had a lot of pain in and struggle, and that you've overcome.
Okay.
I mean, who doesn't want to hear that? Something that you wrestled with, because we all have something that we wrestle with. And what have you done? What have you been doing? How have your thoughts changed about that?
Yeah.
That's always so rich.
It is, especially with yoga, because the more we practice yoga, the more we learn and the deeper our practice gets. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Some get flexible and can do these strong handstand push-ups. Others find so much spirituality. Others just become more graceful. So with yoga, the more we practice, the older we get, the deeper our yoga path becomes. And already sharing this evolution over the years, I think that gives us a lot of material to share for marketing purposes with our community.
Yeah. And I would also say, don't be afraid to let them in on your thinking process. Just even admitting, I'm really scared about saying what I'm about to say. I haven't told the story to too many people. I'm afraid that XYZ is going to happen if I reveal this.
Yeah.
When you let somebody in to your thought process, and you know, this part of me is saying this, but another part of me is saying that, then again, you build the trust. This is somebody I can trust. You know, she's not
Mm-hmm.
trying, or she is not trying to sugarcoat or give me some kind of, you know, polished script. This is real.
This is real. Yeah, this is life happening. And we were already talking a little bit about it when you told us, okay, storytelling can be a memory, but also can be that profound situation your son had in the tree. Are there other elements of a good story you can share with us? Some more hacks that come into your mind, or did we cover them already? I'm mixing questions. I
Yeah, no,
realized that.
I
Or did
want to
something?
share. If there's one book that I would advise, this one, The Art of
Okay.
Memoir by Mary Carr. She's amazing. Even if you don't want to write a full story, like a book, this is so good because I mean, she's an excellent writer, and this is good for anybody who wants to tell any kind of story. In blog,
Mm-hmm.
you know, she'll say about getting into exactly how you were feeling, like down to what your skin was feeling. I felt the cold air on my wrist, or, you know, I remember being in the car and I reached over for the door handle because I felt that I was going to throw up. Whatever, like put yourself put yourself in the story and explain as if you were actually living it. So the person is actually living it through you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that's partly when I was a kid why I started to write and started to want to hear about other people's stories, is because I realized that we're only one person in our own heads. But when you can get into somebody else's story, you can kind of live through them, make the mistakes they made through them without having to yourself. So it's like we have this wealth of wisdom. We don't have to do it all by ourselves. We can learn from other people.
Yeah, so true. Yeah. And these little anecdotes of life, I always encourage yoga teachers. It sounds so unachievable for them to send out the weekly newsletters, but if you um, manage to write 500 words about a yogic moment you had, when you were driving in the car, or your kid knocked over your precious morning coffee, and how yoga helped you in that moment to not freak out, or whatever the situation was, and write 500 words about it and then send that out as a newsletter. I mean, your students will be so grateful for these things. They love those things, right? To see how you use yoga in your life. You can also use then this little story to incorporate it in your yoga practice on the mat with them, to blend over the time in a difficult pose, like when you want to hold with them pigeon for 3 minutes, you can share this moment. And also, if you write these 500 words, send it out as a newsletter, you already have at least 2 social media posts about that.
Yes.
So yeah,
Yeah,
my
absolutely.
technique.
Yeah, and also just make it a little, you know, daily habit so that it becomes a habit, because it's so important. Otherwise, just like yoga, if you don't do it, it's not going to
Mm-hmm.
happen. So,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't have to be long. Usually, if you're feeling that fear, The War of Art is another great book. Stephen Pressfield, he talks about that, about feeling that. Just start with, I'm just going to write one sentence. I'm just going to write one paragraph, and then
Mm-hmm.
usually once you get to that place that you're in the chair, then the rest is easy. It's getting yourself there to
Mm-hmm.
start.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and since you mentioned about like things that happen throughout the day that they could include in their newsletters, I think food is a really big one. I think people want to know, what do yoga teachers eat? You know, how do they look so good?
Oh.
What are they, how, you know, what exactly are they doing? So you could do little food stories about why you choose to eat the way you do, what recipes. I mean, I'm always interested in finding out about food. So
Yeah.
a little story behind that.
And also that leads to another point. When I was still living in a corporate environment, where do you go grocery shopping? How do you manage your days and so on, so that you can, I mean, if you want to eat healthy, you should go at least 2 or 3 times per week to go grocery shopping. And when I was working for corporate, I didn't manage that. So eating fresh, healthy fruits and vegetable was, yeah, kind of impossible. So I'm always curious to hear not only what other people eat, but also how they manage all these things around, right? So it's a good point you mentioned with food that leads to so many other topics. Yeah. And that's also a good point, because my next question would have been, what would you recommend if I tell you that I can't tell stories because my life is so boring?
If you're a human being and you're not me, you have an interesting story that I want to hear. Because again, I haven't lived your life. I've only lived mine. And so I'm, as somebody who just is curious, I want to know more. There's always something. And I doubt that anybody who is on, who comes to you and is going to be watching this has a boring life. By virtue of choosing to teach yoga, there's something interesting there. There's a reason, and it's probably a really interesting one.
Yeah, that's a really good thing. Already the fact that they already spend maybe even several times per week more than an hour with you on the yoga mat shows that they are interested in your life, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And let's say I'm a yoga teacher who's just starting out, and I would actually like to do what I always recommend and write a weekly blog. You already mentioned a great tip, just to sit down and get started with writing, to establish a routine. Is there anything else that can help me with my first article, blog, or to build a routine? Do you have any other secret tips?
Yeah, well, for starting, I would think about who you were before you found the mat. I think that's an interesting place to start, and what the transformation looked like. I think that's always a good place, and you could spread that out over several blog posts. In the next post, I'll be telling you blah 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 what the next thing was on my journey. And just start short. It doesn't have to be long at all. And if you go back to even really, really famous blogs, successful blogs, and you go back, scroll down to the previous posts, like 6 years ago or 10 years ago, you'll see it's going to make you feel so much better about starting out, because everybody starts out somewhere, and it's not how they end up. And it's usually clumsy, and you start to figure out your style as you do it. It's like anything. So the key is always just to start.
Yeah. And I know, I also know that a lot of yoga teachers journal. So maybe if they go through their journal and take out a few pieces and build a story around that, that could maybe also be a good starting point,
from
right?
your journals, and also from your dreams.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. And then also leave room at the end for people to comment, or even ask them a question. What resonated with you? What are your challenges? What are your struggles? That will give you a tip for the next, post. As you get feedback, you'll start to tailor and to get ideas, and just your style will grow over time.
For sure. And also, I'm in a different situation, because I work, my marketing clients are only online. But if you're teaching face to face with people on a yoga mat, just also talk to them, right? And see, maybe you get ideas for stories there. And also, of course, mention your website, mention your blog, ask them for their email address, and try to make a connection there, and ask them what they liked about, or maybe also what was challenging for them during the yoga class today. And maybe this gives you as well, of course, ideas about the next yoga class, but maybe you realize, okay, this happened to me as well, maybe last week, or maybe a couple of years ago. I can write about that. I should write about that. Yeah.
And always try to carry around something that you could take notes in, because you think, I'll remember this later. You never remember it exactly that way. I mean, even if you just speak into your phone, I don't do that, but I know a lot of people do. Just take a quick little, because you'll lose it. But if you start to have something like that, just a little notepad or something that you can jot down notes, then you'll start training your brain to look for things that you could use for your next post. Even if you're doing your own practice, something will pop into your head. I'm not saying stop your yoga practice to write that a note, but you could do it after. Yeah, you'll just start being more aware. It's kind of like when you start keeping a notebook to 5 things that you're grateful for during the day. If you're keeping it sort of trains you to start looking for more and more things to be grateful for.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same thing with your blog or the emails that you're sending. Once you have something where you know you're going to capture, you start seeing different ideas for content.
Mm-hmm. That's a great advice. Yeah, that's so true. Yeah. And unfortunately, this happens to me a lot when I'm on my moto. I have a moped. I don't have a car here because it's just so driving here is a little bit crazy for me in the Dominican Republic. So I stay on my little slow moto on the side of the road where I don't bother anybody. And I have the greatest ideas on that moto, but I can't stop, or I don't want to stop to talk to my phone. And then I'm like, okay, when I arrive at the parking place, I immediately write it down. And then I arrive at the parking place and I was like, yeah, I had such a great idea. I wanted to write it down, and then it's gone.
Yeah. Well, and so what you could do is just give yourself 10 minutes at the end of each day, just to sort of, and don't think of it as I'm going to write a blog post, because that's too scary. And you're going to go into that fear mind where you're not going to be natural. So just literally rough notes of things that you did during that day or thoughts that you had. And then there will be one thing that you'll get into from that. And then you'll start, and then you'll have your blog post before you know it. But if you kind of trick your mind into thinking, I'm just doing a rough download of what I thought about today, who I met, anything like that, there will be usually one little thing that you will just coast with. And then you have a post.
I really love that. I really love that because I have a rough morning routine. I wake up super early. I like to be lazy in bed and cuddle with my dog and have my coffee. So I'm always tempted. And then I go surfing. I mean, I leave the house at 6:15. It's really super early, right? So I don't want to burden myself with another writing exercise or whatever. And I also think what you just mentioned, to just take 10 minutes in the evening to write down your day, will also help you with sleep.
Yeah, right, because you're offloading it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I will try that, Jessica. Okay. Yeah, thanks so much. Is there anything you would like to add? I'm at the end of all of my questions.
I think we've covered it. Anything else that you want to, you know where to find me. And I'm so grateful for this conversation. This has been great to get to know you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jessica. It was such a pleasure. And I have the feeling it was not our last interview. Somehow, I don't know. Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, and tell me how you guys, what resonated with you in that interview. Leave us a comment. We are looking forward to that. Thanks
Definitely.
so much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.
Thank you.